you to bleed for me.
Happy Sunday morning, Flyers fans. That's right. It's time for another episode of Shoot, another Flyer show. I'm Chris Babos, Philadelphia Sports Network, and we're here to bring you episode number 18 here in March. Can you believe it? 2/3 of the way through the Philadelphia Flyers season, nearing the NHL trade deadline, and we've got a loaded show for you. Matvei Michkov back in the conversation for the Calder. You've got Scott Laughton and the trade rumors that are swirling around Philadelphia, and his lovely little post on social media that broke the internet in Philadelphia on Friday night, I believe it was. And then, of course, you've got the Philadelphia Flyers and their quest to make the Stanley Cup playoffs for the first time since 2020. They ended up beating the Winnipeg Jets, one of the NHL's best teams in the NHL, in a 2-1 shootout last night. Matvei Michkov didn't garner points in the game, did score the shootout winner in the game. So very interesting time for the Philadelphia Flyers. They ship off Joel Farabee, Morgan Frost to Calgary. A lot of people thought they were dead in the water. And then here you go, straight out of the Four Nations face-off break. The Flyers are 3-0-1. Go figure. A convincing 6-3 win over Edmonton. A dominating 6-1 win over the Pittsburgh Penguins. A disappointing blown multi-goal lead against the Penguins in Pittsburgh in a 5-4 loss. And then finally, last night's shootout win over the Winnipeg Jets at the Canada Life Center. A fantastic game overall. We'll get into it a little bit. Great to see Ivan Fedotov and his play last night to step up for Sam Urson, who had a complete day off. Alexei Kolosov was the backup for Fedotov in the game. And now Philadelphia gets the opportunity to come home through the trade deadline. 6 straight games at Wells Fargo Center coming up for the Philadelphia Flyers between March 4th and March 15th. So Philadelphia will be home through the trade deadline. It'll be interesting to see if Scott Laughton will remain with the team after March the 7th. So a couple of things we'll be diving into today. As we talked about, let's check in a weekly overview for the Philadelphia Flyers. 3-0-1 since that Four Nations break. They've got 62 points in a very crowded Eastern Conference standings. 7 out of a possible 8 points, which is lovely for John Tortorella's club. They're up to 51% of the total available points on the season. But the problem is the window of available points is shrinking rapidly. That's right. 74% of the total available points in the NHL regular season have been dispersed as of March the 2nd. That's right. 74%. There is a quarter of the season left, and that is going to be the stretch run for Philadelphia. And it's going to take quite the effort for the Flyers to be able to find themselves in the playoffs this season. According to Money Puck, the odds, 2.8%, a 3% chance. That's the 7th worst in the league. I believe there were 3 teams, Nashville, San Jose, and Chicago, all were at 0% chance given their sub 50 points in the standings. But Philadelphia, it's a dogfight in the Metro and in the Eastern Conference. And right now they are trying to scale that mountain, but they've done a good job, the best that they can do thus far, taking 7 out of those 8 possible points heading towards that NHL trade deadline. As I mentioned, there were 4 games down to go from when that Four Nations break started. There are 2 games left to go. Calgary, and then a rematch with Winnipeg. And then the trade deadline on Friday, followed by a Saturday afternoon game against the Seattle Kraken, in which at that point we'll know, is Ristolainen still in Philadelphia? Is Scott Lawton still in Philadelphia? Are there players on the team that get moved that nobody really expects? There have been some names out there. I'm not going to throw any extra gasoline on the fire and throw some names around, but there's certainly some names out there. John Tortorella had an absolutely fantastic press conference earlier this week. I believe it was on Tuesday, may have been Wednesday, in which he was very honest about how he views his job as an NHL head coach, how he doesn't exactly look into the future and what his decisions would have a bearing on the Philadelphia Flyers. He's worried about the current situation, the current roster, the current team. But he also said he's very honest with Danny Briere. Some guys are going to be, what he said, quote, on the bus. Other guys will not. And he's very honest about who those individuals are going to be. Obviously, you got to sit there and say a player like a Matvei Michkov, pretty well situated on that bus. Owen Tippett probably has got another good chance. Right now, the way he's playing, Noah Cates definitely has an opportunity. But there's a lot of opportunity for movement in Philadelphia. Who knows what offers are going to come the way of Daniel Briere during silly season at the NHL trade deadline next week. But it's definitely a situation where Daniel Briere has the opportunity to improve the club in some capacity. And he's got to take that chance if he can. Once again, Flyers, 7 picks in the top 66 in the top 2 rounds in 2025. No guarantee they make all of those picks, whether that's an offer sheet, whether that's an off-season trade to send out some picks. You know, a lot of flexibility there. And then always the opportunity to kick those picks down the line to what's considered a much stronger 2026 NHL draft class, supposedly headlined by Gavin McKenna. But again, 18 months away, there's a lot of room for a lot of different things to happen come the NHL draft in 2026. So Daniel Briere seems to have the Flyers well positioned to accelerate the rebuild a little bit with this upcoming draft, whether that's with high value draft picks themselves or with making a trade. And a lot of that starts this Friday, March the 7th, when a lot of teams will be looking to wheel and deal and position themselves for the playoff. The Flyers will have an opportunity to position themselves, whether or not they can make up enough ground. That's why we watch the games on TV and in the stadiums, because anything can happen in the NHL. But as I mentioned, according to Money Puck, about a 3% chance for the Philadelphia Flyers to make the playoffs as it sits right now on March the 2nd. A quick recap of the week last week since the Four Nations break. Philadelphia hosted Connor McDavid and the Edmonton Oilers to restart the season, I suppose. A 6-3 win at Wells Fargo Center. Matvei Michkov a goal, 2 assists. Owen Tippett with a pair of goals, and Sean Couturier with a goal and 2 assists. A game in which McDavid just seemed tired, understandably, after leading Canada to a big-time win in overtime at the Four Nations face-off. Edmonton really struggled out of the gate. I believe they lost 3 or 4 straight. And really didn't look very competitive. They played Washington shortly after playing the Flyers, another game that I had watched, and they just didn't really have it going. So Edmonton will need to get things situated, but they have themselves fairly well situated in the Western Conference as it sits on March the 2nd. Michkov scored the opener in that game in Edmonton. Edmonton took a 2-1 lead rather at the end of the first period. Tippett, Couturier gave the Flyers a 3-2 lead. Matthias Ekholm tied it, and then it was the Flyers, Tippett, Kuzmenko, and then Rasmus Ristolainen with the empty netter. Ristolainen had a fantastic game on Saturday against the Edmonton Oilers. I think he's certainly not hurting his draft stock, or trade stock rather, in the couple of games that he's played. You know, obviously he's not a perfect defenseman, but I think he definitely could be a very helpful piece for a contending team. I think he's incredibly helpful for the Philadelphia Flyers, and I will not be mad if Rasmus Ristolainen is still on this team on March the 8th. I think he should be. With that being said, the Florida Panthers last night traded for Seth Jones. They sent Spencer Knight and a first round pick to the Chicago Blackhawks to beef up their defense for a right handed shot defenseman, taking another one of those options off the trade market. That's only going to increase Ristolainen's value, and that's something that Danny Briere has to explore while he's still got term on his contract. That makes him more valuable as far as you're willing to deal with the cap number. But I would think with the salary cap going up, most NHL franchises would probably be okay taking Ristolainen's cap hit to be able to add a big, tall, bruising, right-handed defenseman into their playoff lineup. Philadelphia outshot Edmonton 30-18 in that game. Like I said, it was pretty much a dominating performance for Philadelphia. They came out flying. 15 saves on 18 shots for Sam Urson as he allowed 3 goals in the victory. There was no prediction because I took 2 weeks off for the Four Nations break. I had the opportunity to cover that for the hockey writers. I covered Team Sweden. I got to write about Sam Urson and his big win over the United States. So that was freaking awesome. But it was one of those situations that we took a little bit of a break from Shoot Another Flyer show. And we're hoping to get back to a more normal schedule as we move forward here towards the NHL trade deadline. And then, of course, the most exciting, the NHL playoffs. Game 2 of the week was a game at home against the Pittsburgh Penguins on Tuesday, a 6-1 win for Philadelphia at the Wells Fargo Center. Bobby Brink, fantastic game, a goal and 3 assists in the contest. Noah Cates continues to just be absolutely phenomenal, 2 goals and an assist. And Tyson Forrester rounding out that line with a goal and 2 assists. They were absolutely fantastic, that entire line. Up and down the lineup, scored three massive goals. Tippett got the third period goal, and then Rasmus Ristolainen also chipped in, again, helping that trade stock for Philadelphia and Danny Briere as they speed towards that trade deadline. Third game of the week was a trip to PG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh across the Keystone State. A 5-4 loss. It was a disappointing overtime loss. Evgeny Malkin, his 12th of the season, scored the game winner, scored the tying goal too, 2:30 into the third period. Matvei Michkov, an absolutely stellar game in the contest. He ended up with 2 goals and an assist in the game. Unfortunately, was also on the ice in the 3-on-3 overtime session and allowed an opportunity for Malkin to slip in undetected and end the game. So a disappointing point that the Flyers let slip away, but they did at least get the game to overtime. Back and forth affair. Absolutely wild second period. 6 total goals were scored in the second period. Flashing back to that absolutely crazy playoff series, I want to say from the top of my memory banks, it was 2012. Flyers and Penguins played, and there was something like 60 goals or something stupid like that scored in that contest or in that entire playoff series as several games 8-7 6-5 throughout the series. I want to say it went 5 or 6 games without looking it up. It's just an absolutely fantastic playoff series. I want to say it was the first round as well, many years ago. So interesting moment in the game. Matvei Michkov never quitting on his first goal. Had the puck back at the point. Shot went wide, and he stayed by the side of the post. Found the loose puck, and then managed to maneuver a stick around some traffic and slam it home past the goaltender. So I like seeing those opportunities. It's one of those things that Jim Jackson and Brian Boucher, Scott Hartnell when he's up there, Keith Jones when he was in the booth, always talked about stopping by the post, stopping in front of the net, waiting for a rebound. And it's something that Matvei Michkov did right there. And it led to the first goal for the Philadelphia Flyers on the game. Sam Urson, another solid performance. Even though he did let up the 5 goals, 20 saves on 25 shots, 2 power play saves as well. You really do want to pick up the win in a game that your team scores 4 goals. but it was an overall defensive breakdown for the Flyers as they gave up 4 out of the last 5 goals of the game. And oftentimes you can't exactly fault your goalie in those situations. So the Flyers dropped that one 5-4 in Pittsburgh. And then last night, they traveled to Winnipeg, Canada Life Center, and played one of the best teams in the NHL. Come away with a 2-1 win up in Winnipeg. Ivan Fedotov, 96.7 save percentage, so stopped 97% of shots, 29 saves, allowed 1 goal. Connor Hellebuck, the Jets goalie, was just as good. He had a 97% save percentage, 31 stops on 32 shots. Mark Shifley, the goal for Winnipeg in the first. Jamie Drysdale with a snipe, his third of the season in the second. No goals in the third. And then Matvei Michkov with a sick deke. And then the backhanded goal was the only score in the shootout as the Flyers capture the win. Fairly close and even contest all the way across the board. Shots 32-30 between Philly and Winnipeg. Hits 28 Flyers, 29 Jets. So a very even contest. Not many penalties. Flyers took one. The Jets took one early, I believe. The Flyers took 2 late, but it didn't really amount to anything. The teams will rematch next week in Philadelphia, so that should be a fantastic contest as the Jets will look to get a measure of revenge in their home return battle against the Philadelphia Flyers next week. When you clicked on this stream, you saw on the left side Matvei Michkov, and he is now back in the Calder conversation. Yes, absolutely. 3 goals, 5 assists for 8 points since the Four Nations face-off resumed, or since the NHL resumed from the Four Nations face-off. He's played 4 games, had all those stats in 3 games, did not factor into the scoring last night in regulation. As we just touched on, he did score the shootout winner for the Flyers. He just looks like he has a renewed jump, a renewed energy in his step. It certainly helps that he's got Tippett on one side, Sean Couturier in the middle. That line has been absolutely fantastic. Not exactly who I would have thought Michkov would have found chemistry with, in all honesty. Putting Sean Couturier in the middle, but it makes a lot of sense. Sean Couturier can focus and lock down the middle of the ice, can play that defensive game, still make offensive plays, can still chip in, can still find rebounds and all of that, but he can focus on the defense. He can allow Owen Tippett to use that speed, fly down the wings, get to loose pucks, cause a little more pressure with that speed up at the blue line. Same goes for Matvei Michkov. In the last 4 games, I'd have to go back and look at the tape. There's been at least 3 or 4 wide open breakaways from the red line for Michkov that either he's been hit with a pass from Couturier, Tippett, one of the defensemen, but he is definitely breaking out of the zone a little quicker, and the Flyers are finding him. Last night he was stopped on that attempt by Hellebuck. So it's one of those opportunities that as long as Michkov's leaking out of the zone and getting those offensive chances, he's going to continue to have confidence. And that kid with confidence is danger. The kid without confidence is incredibly dangerous. So Matvei Michkov with confidence, watch out. It's going to be an incredibly exciting final 21 games in Philadelphia. The Philadelphia Flyers inconceivably have never had an NHL Calder winner. You can go back across all of the Flyers rookies. Bernie Parent didn't do it. Eric Lindros didn't do it. Claude Giroux didn't do it. Matvei Michkov has the chance. He's in the race. He's right up there alongside Lane Hutson from Montreal. He's right upside along Macklin Celebrini out of San Jose. Logan Stankoven from Dallas, I thought was going to be a major player this season. He's kind of dealing with that sophomore slump. So it seems to be a 3-horse race between Celebrini, Matvei Michkov, and Hudson up there in Montreal. for the NHL's Rookie of the Year. As of right now, if he continues to play the way that he's played over the last 4 to 5 games, Michov's going to make an incredibly strong push. I really think if he continues to pick up a point per game, maybe 2 points per game, 1.5 might get it done. I really do think we might see him lift that Calder Trophy for the first time in Philadelphia. I believe the NHL awards are still in Las Vegas, so that'll be an exciting opportunity if the young Russian can continue to put it together over the last 21 games of the Flyers season. If you're checking in on YouTube, give us a like, comment, and give us a subscription as well. That way, you know when Philly Sports Network is bringing you all of the awesome content. It's not just shoot another Flyers show. We've got baseball, alley talk for the Philadelphia Phillies. We've got flipping the birds for your Eagles content. The Inside Outsider with Liam Jenkins. More birds content. Still processing. Floating around with their 76ers. I apologize if I get it wrong. I believe it's Dupe on the Volley for our Union crew that just started their season yesterday, or not yesterday, their home season yesterday with a big win. So a lot of great content coming your way here on YouTube and all across other social media platforms, but primarily on YouTube. So give us a like, give us a comment, give us a subscription, and pay attention. Get your voice heard here with Philly Sports Network. It's 365 for sports in Philadelphia, and we're always talking about it, so we can talk about it right here with you on YouTube. Speaking of another Russian that's made a bit of an impact since his arrival, Andrei Kuzmenko, arriving from Calgary in the Morgan Frost Joel Farabee trade. 3 points, 5 games since his acquisition, has showcased a lot of interesting offensive skills that didn't exactly think the Flyers were depth of until you saw Kuzmenko do some things, particularly in that bumper spot on the power play, and his ability to move the puck from side to side and generate opportunities has been a welcomed addition. He has some flair to his game. He is a much better passer than I ever saw in the highlights, and having the opportunity to watch him live is Andrei Kuzmenko. Fantastic shot. I think he needs to shoot a little bit more. I really do think he understands and thinks the game well. And I think you're seeing the opportunity that he has in the top 6 that he hasn't really gotten since he arrived to Vancouver 2 seasons ago. Scored 39 goals alongside Elias Pettersson for the Canucks. So I really do like what Andrei Kuzmenko is providing for the Flyers. I'll touch on it in a little bit because I got a question in the gritty question and answer section on whether or not he'll still be here, whether that's March 7th or after the season. I'm about 50-50. I wouldn't be mad at seeing him, but we'll touch on that in a minute. I will say -4 is a bit alarming for Kuzmenko in the 5 games that he's played. That's not all entirely on him. However, one of the knocks on him was his defensive play, which I thought has been good since he's been here in Philadelphia. It's 5 games. It's a very small sample size. But with that being said, he's been on the ice 4 goals for, and then he's still minus in those games, which means he's on the ice for more goals against. Definitely not what you want to see out of Andrei Kuzmenko, but I do think he's made an impact, and I think he's given Denny Briere in the front office something to think about. His contract's a little high if they do go to re-sign him for his current rate, but I do think that there is a conversation to be had on whether or not Kuzmenko hangs around in Philadelphia following this season. His 86 goals and 138 points in 195 NHL games. So he definitely does bring some offensive talent to a team that desperately does need some offense. Sticking with that theme of trade deadline, And I take a long pause there because this is a tough one. Scott Lawton, will he still be here after March 7th? Scott Lawton having some fun with social media as he recreated the Last Supper at a restaurant up in Winnipeg. A couple of teammates were in the photo. Flyer staff was in the photo, some equipment staff as well. Uh, and that started a firestorm. What does Scott Lawton know? I personally think he was having a little bit of fun with the situation. I do know Flyers players themselves are on social media. They do like to see what the conversation is, and I think it was simply that. I think he understood that there's an opportunity for Daniel Briere to make a move. I think Lawton wants to stay here, but I think he understands the situation as well. I think it would be good for Scott Lawton to have an opportunity to win. I think he can be an exceptional player, playing a similar role for a contender as he has in Philadelphia. That mid six, mid nine forward, second, third line center, penalty kill, occasional power play if you really need him in a pinch to chip in. But that penalty kill specialty is really, really helpful in the postseason, and particularly if you get some good chemistry. You've seen what him and TK were able to do on the penalty kill. We called it a power kill last year because of the dominance. So if you find a chemistry partner on that man disadvantage unit, could be a good pickup for somebody. Scott Lawton, final or fourth year of a 5-year, $15 million contract. He makes $3 million a year, so it's a pretty palatable contract across the league, one would imagine. He does have term. He's got one more year left on that deal. I personally think some of the best landing spots for him are probably New Jersey. Could really use him. Not Chicago. Florida would be an absolutely fantastic landing spot, although I don't know if they have a spot in the middle. And then I'm a little biased because I do cover them elsewhere, but I think Washington and the Capitals, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference this season, and they really don't have many needs except for that one. They need a bottom six forward that can play center, that can play on the penalty kill. So if I had to pick a place that isn't Philadelphia for Scott Lawton to land, Washington's my choice. I think that he would fit in really well down there with the Caps. But we will see what happens in 5 days' time as the NHL speeds towards that NHL trade deadline. In his career, Scott Lawton, 659 games played, 106 goals, 265 points. He averages 14.29 a night. So a very serviceable player for any NHL team that looks to acquire him as they push towards that NHL playoff. Once again, thanks for checking in with us here on YouTube and on social media. Give us a subscribe, click the like button, drop a comment, questions. We'll answer them next week when we join you here for another Flyer show, hopefully episode 19. Dave's still figuring out when that's going to be, but stay tuned to social media. We'll get you that information as soon as we can. One of my favorite sections here, the gritty questions and answer section. That's right, questions from the community. Today's comes from Martin, who checks in with 2 questions. First one will be, will Andrei Kuzmenko be moved at the NHL trade deadline? I touched on this a couple of moments ago. I think it's basically 50-50. I think he has shown a lot of promise for Philadelphia. He brings a unique element that the Flyers didn't have before they added him to the squad. I do think that trade was more about getting off of Farabee's salary, adding a young player that they really liked in Peltier. I think those were the main catalysts for the move. But if they can figure out the money, then I see no reason why Kuzmenko could not work in Philadelphia for another year or two. I personally would be a bit hard pressed if I'm Danny Briere to pay him another $5 million contract. I don't exactly know how that works based off of his NHL experience, playing 2 seasons, if he's going to be willing to drop from a $5 million contract to stay in the NHL. There's a lot of questions to go around that. 5 million seems a bit high. He is playing top 6 minutes over the course from a full season. You get 30, 40 goals out of him again, then yeah, absolutely $5 million is a worthwhile investment. But if you pay $5 million for next season and you get 20 goals, 15 assists, 20 and 20, a 40-point season, are you happy with that? I don't really think that you are, given the ice time, given top forward or top 6 forward minutes, given power play opportunities that you would think would come. So it's one of those things that they're going to have to make a determination on where they value his scoring and how much value that brings to the Philadelphia Flyers as they kind of prepare for the 2025-2026 season. I do think that if Danny Briere gets anything suitable for an offer, maybe anything above, and I haven't put too much thought into this, just off the top of my head, a third-round pick or more, I would think that that would be worthwhile to move off of the UFA contract, even though he's been impressive in his first 7 games. I don't necessarily think that offer is coming from an NHL GM, if I'm being quite honest. I really do think that he's got value, but I think a lot of NHL GMs might be more willing to wait, see what happens with the open market if he gets there, as opposed to setting out a trade asset for a relatively unproven talent. But again, Kuzmenko walked in the league and scored 39 goals. That doesn't just happen, generally speaking. So if the right team feels like they have an opportunity to put him in an advantageous situation in the playoffs, then it might be worth a swing at the fences. And playoff teams tend to do that. So we'll see what offers potentially come Danny Briere's way for Andrei Kuzmenko is, again, 5 days until that NHL trade line comes our way. Second question comes in from Martin. What will the goaltender situation be for the Flyers over the remaining 21 games? I think that's an absolutely fantastic question. So thank you very much. If you want to be like Martin and get your question answered, drop me a message on socials or on the YouTube, and we can get you featured here just like him. John Tortorella has been very honest in saying that he expects a lot of Sam Ersson down the stretch. And unless the Flyers significantly fall out of the situation with a losing streak of 3 to 4 games over the next, say, 3 weeks or so, then I honestly do think you're going to see a lot of Sam Ersson. Taking a look at the schedule, there's 3 back-to-backs remaining in the Flyers schedule. There's also 2 sets of 3 games in 4 nights. So I think Fedotov will get some starts there. So to answer the question, I'm going to say 16 starts for Sam Ersson and 5 starts for Fedotov, assuming the Flyers are in the playoff hunt for the remainder of the season. I think that's how that's going to be. So 16 for Ersson, 5 for Fedotov. In the event that the Flyers fall out of it, and the April schedule is essentially a wash as far as this regular season goes, then I would expect to see maybe 10 games for Ersson through the month of March. And then you've got Fedotov probably still getting his 5 games, and then maybe a handful for Kolosov to just give him some of that NHL experience in games that the Flyers won't necessarily need to win down the stretch, because at that point they're playing for that NHL draft pick, even though they're never going to come out and say it in the press conference or when talking to the media. At that point, you know, you're still competing. NHL players will always compete, but the wins are certainly not going to be helpful if you're not contending for the playoffs. You know, you're damaging your own lottery selections at that point. And right now, the Flyers are moving in that direction. 3-0-1 coming out of the Four Nations break, and definitely a much different tone had they gone 0-3-1 heading into next Friday. So Danny Briere's got some decisions to make, like he did last season, as he traded Sean Walker and took a big piece out of that lineup. Ended up indirectly costing the Flyers the postseason. And I say that because they were so close that I think if they had the extra defense last season, they might have been able to sneak their way into the postseason. But when push comes to shove, you've got to make those deals in a rebuilding situation. And that's where it seems like the situation lies for Scott Lawton and for Rasmus Ristolainen 5 days ahead of the NHL trade deadline. So upcoming predictions here for the 3 games before I hope to speak to you next. We've got the Flyers hosting Joel Farabee, Morgan Frost, and the Calgary Flames. 28 wins on the season for Calgary, 4-5-1 in their last 10. I do think the Philadelphia Flyers are going to continue to roll, go to 4-0-1. They're going to pick up, it'll be a tight contest, 4-2 win. I think Michkov picks up a big goal in the contest as well. As the Flyers pick up a win, Sam Urson will also pick up the start in that contest. 2 days later, on Thursday, the Flyers will battle the Winnipeg Jets in the rematch of last night. I think this one is again going to go to overtime. I think it's going to be another close contest. I have the Jets taking the victory in this one, a 3-2 overtime win. And let's go ahead and say that Tippett comes to mind. I don't want to go with that. Let's go with Bobby Brink. Bobby Brink with a goal in a 3-2 loss for the Flyers as they host the NHL's best team in the Winnipeg Jets next Thursday. And then finally, on Saturday, the Seattle Kraken come to town for their only visit to Philadelphia on the season. I think this is going to be a Fedotov game. I think he's able to pick up a 3-1 win for the Philadelphia Flyers as they're able to take down the Seattle Kraken. They've lost 31 games in the year, so I think the Flyers are going to be able to pick that one up. And then with that being said, Flyers, again, continuing to roll. If that all comes true, Flyers will be looking at a situation where they're 5-0-2 heading past the NHL trade deadline in their last 7 games. And if they continue to put that string together, they're going to make it awfully difficult to stay out of that wild card opportunity. It's close. I don't remember if I covered it up the top, but we're going to do it now before I get out of here. It's really a wild show there up in the Eastern Conference. Detroit and Columbus played yesterday in the Stadium Series. Columbus picked up a big 5-3 win outdoors at the Shoe at Ohio State. So those are the top 2 teams in the wild card. Columbus 68 points, Detroit 66 points. And then you've got the pack. Ottawa 64, Boston 64, Montreal 63, New York Rangers 62, Philadelphia 62, New York Islanders 61, Pittsburgh 57. That is a real tight grouping. And if the Flyers are able to string together another week like they did this week, where they're able to continually pick up wins, then the tone might change around Philadelphia, and they might find a way to slip their way into the NHL playoffs. That'll be it for now. Thank you very much for joining us here on Shoot Another Flyer Show, episode number 18. Once again, I'm Chris Babos with Philadelphia Sports Network. You can find me on socials at CBabosWrites on Twitter. Same login on Blue Sky. And then you can also find me at Christopher Babos, NBA on LinkedIn as well. I'll be looking forward to coming to you next week. Stay tuned. We've got a lot of good content coming on the PSN YouTube channel. And then stay tuned to Metro Philadelphia and PSN NHL trade deadline 5 days away. It's going to be an exciting time in Philadelphia. I hope you have a wonderful Sunday afternoon. Let's go Flyers. Have a good evening, everyone.
Want you to bleed for me.